Good day, and welcome to the Diary of the Pan-African Preacher. This week's proverb says, ears that do not listen to advice accompany the head when it is chopped off. Ears that do not listen to advice accompany the head when it is chopped off. Africa is good news for China. Without a strategic continental plan for how it will trade with the Asian giant, China, African nations will remain at the bottom of the development indices. As I record this video, most African heads of state are in Beijing, China. They are there for the 24 Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, that summit held from September 4th through to the 6th. This is the 9th summit held since 2000. Almost every major company in China will be bending over backwards to fete and dine our African leaders. And why shouldn't they? We are the greatest partners they could ever dream of finding. We continue to do for them, China, what we are not committed to doing for ourselves, Africa. This so-called partnership is so one-sided in the favor of China that it is absurd. Yes, international trade is essential. However, it is supposed to bring about a comparative advantage for Africa. The partnership has not been delivering the expected benefits to the average African. Given Africa's trade imbalance with China, in 2021, it was 42 billion US dollars. In 2022, it grew to 46 billion. And in 2023, it rose to 64.1 billion US dollars. This is why I say Africa is good news for the average Chinese person. Whether they want us in their country or not, we continue to empower them in tangible ways. Take, for example, since the first China-Africa Cooperation Summit in 2000, 30 million Chinese have been lifted out of extreme poverty every year. In contrast, in Africa, the COVID-19 pandemic saw increased poverty levels. Between 2015 and 2023, there were 4,150,000,000 millionaires in China, as opposed to 160,000 in Africa. Now, I am not arguing against Africa-China trade or calling for a boycott of Chinese goods. I acknowledge that China improved its human capital, opened its foreign trade and investment, and created a better investment climate for its private sector, therefore growing its economy by 10%. However, I submit to you that this could not have been done without Africa's raw materials at low prices and Africa's purchase of Chinese manufacturing goods at higher value-added prices. And don't even let me go down the road of the number of African multinationals that operates on the African continent. On other occasions, I have claimed that individual African countries negotiating with China is likened to a mouse negotiating with an elephant. Individually, African countries lack the vision, capacity, and strategies to negotiate deals that could see a massive reduction of poverty in our rural and urban centers. So this week, we will see much of the same. A transfer of wealth from Africa to China. Deals, contracts, and loans will be promised and signed that will allow all parts of Chinese society to be enriched. Our African leaders need to be aware that this sentence to perpetual poverty is unacceptable to the masses of African people. My grandmother, bless her soul, used to say, "Those who will not listen will feel." Ashe.